Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 13 Glitch in the Matrix and Supernatural stories for you. Have you ever had a memory you thought so surely was true, but it wasn't? Others have too. Let's get into it. Case file number 2083, written by K7, USS Voyager, Memory, and Chakotay. The original writer of the Mandela Effect talked about a specific episode of Star Trek Voyager. In that episode, the character Chakotay was killed off. I remembered this vividly because he was my favorite character, and I decided to stop watching Voyager then. A couple weeks later, his character was back on the show. I just thought they did some sci-fi stuff and brought him back. I didn't really care since Chakotay was back. Flash forward to the original writer of the Mandela Effect being at a Voyager convention, and at a panel with the actor who played Chakotay. She asked him about this specific episode and why she could never find it to rewatch. The actor, who at the time was also writing for the show, said that episode never happened, and not only did the episode never happen, but the idea was never floated at any point. So yeah, I remember a specific TV episode that another person I've never met remembers, and when a person directly linked to the subject was asked, they said it never happened. I don't know what that is, but it's been weird for me for years. You know, this happened to me too, with a Stargate SG-1 episode. Rewatching it as I always do, and there was an episode that I simply never remembered watching. It didn't exist, and now it does. Case file number 2084. Written by Wide Ocean of Stars. Silent Plea. Watches vibrate. No call to see. I have this friend who I'm very close to. Whenever I need advice, she's the first person I talk to. I love her very much. A few weeks ago, something crazy happened. I argued with my boyfriend that night, and I felt like crap. I wanted to call her to talk to her about it, and I thought about it for like an hour, but for some reason I didn't. I guess I didn't want to bother her. The next morning, when I was at work and by myself with my thoughts, I kept thinking about the fight and if I should have called my friend instead of dwelling on my emotions. I wanted to talk to her so bad. Half an hour later, I got a message. I read it on my watch, and it was my friend texting me, "Did you call?" I was flabbergasted. I swear I didn't call her, and I had no idea what was happening. I told her no, I did not, and sent her a screenshot of my recent calls, which obviously didn't include her contact. During my break, I talked to her on the phone, and she told me that she was woken up by her watch vibrating that morning, saying I was calling. She found that weird, because my name had been saved in her contacts, written in font symbols. So usually when I called or texted, it would show up as Japanese signs or something on her watch. But that morning, it clearly read my first name. What was also weird is that she also couldn't find the call on the list in her recent calls. She literally couldn't find any proof. I told her what had happened the night before, and that I wanted to talk to her all along, but was too scared to actually call her. I have no idea how this is possible. I don't know if it was some weird telepathic thing, but it's one of the creepiest things that has ever happened to me. I swear to God, I'm not making this up. We didn't tell anyone about it because it just seemed too crazy to believe anyway. Case file number 2085, written by Thunder Snow. Car on fire, brakes expire, a hill most dire. I was 18 and bought my first car, very used. My friend and I decided to drive a couple hours away to camp at the coast for the weekend. The day before I left, my boss at work came up to me, visibly distressed, and said he had a really bad dream about our road trip, that something bad would happen to us, something involving the water. He was quite adamant that he felt we shouldn't go. We went anyway. It was fun. When the weekend was up, I was driving down the road and I felt compelled to be worried about one of the tires. Something is wrong with the wheel, is what I felt like I heard. I was a young teenage girl with absolutely zero understanding of cars or tires. And as far as I knew, the tires were all fine. I actually pulled over to the side of the road and made my friend get out and inspect all the tires with me. Everything looked hunky-dory to us. Still, when we came up to the turn ahead to turn home, we both felt a very strong hesitation that we should not go that way. We actually opted to drive a different route that would add 4+ hours to our trip, just to avoid the road that felt so hinky all of a sudden. So we're driving along, happy, having a fun time, when the car starts doing something shifty. Like it pulls randomly to one side. We shrug and think maybe the tires needed to be rotated. We'll stop at a tire place in the next town. When we eventually reach the next town, as we are literally pulling into a parking spot at their local tire shop, my brakes fail. They straight up don't work. Fortunately, the car managed to stop anyway. It was at low speed. I think very little of this, and tell the tire shop people that I think my tires need to be rotated. I swear, I'm not as ditzy as the story is making me sound. I was just wholly ignorant about cars. Auto shops should be brought back to public education. They got up under the car and informed me that my car had just been on fire, that I blew a bearing in one of the wheels, hence the shifty behavior, continued to drive down a highway like that, which somehow generated sparks that ignited something. Yeah, this was so long ago, and I was so ignorant about cars. All I remember is it burned up my brakes and boiled the brake fluid. It cost a small fortune to get home. But later my friend and I looked at a map. It turns out, if we had driven home, my brakes would have failed around when we reached a famous steep hill, heading downwards. The hill was famous because of how many people die there yearly. At the base of the hill is a rushing river, which then brought to memory the dream my boss had had. Case file number 2086, written by A Mixed Bombshell. Kitchen magic, bonked in fact. Okay, so this glitch just happened to me about 40 minutes ago while I was cooking dinner. I had to cut up some chicken, so I went and looked for a glass cutting board, which me and my boyfriend both put right between the microwave and the wall. I looked there, it's not there. So I asked the boyfriend where it is since it's not there. He looks there, it's not there, so we both are confused and begin to search the kitchen. I check that spot again one more time and it's still not there. It's nowhere to be found. So I was just going to use the cooking stone that we have that's on top of the microwave to cut the chicken. I didn't really want to use it since I didn't know if the chicken juices could be absorbed into the stone and cross-contaminate other foods. Because of this, I took the stone out of the box it was in and read the instructions to see if it was safe to use. As I'm getting done reading the pamphlet, I look at the side of the microwave again and lo and behold, there's the cutting board. At this point, I freak out and ask my boyfriend if he's playing mind games with me. He gets confused and asks what I mean. And I tell him that I found the cutting board right where we both just looked. He says there's no way it was there, and we both know that it definitely wasn't there. I had even stuck my hand where it was supposed to be. There was literally nothing other than some ramen that fell there. This kind of thing happens to me all the time, and I always just kind of write it off as me having a bad memory or my cats taking stuff and dragging it somewhere else. But this is the first time that me and someone else have experienced it at the same time, so I feel like I can't write this one off. Scary, but cool. Case file number 2087, written by Nervous Case 6909. Parking lot paradox, Prius in a new box. This car was not a Tesla or any other car with self-driving capabilities. It is a 2012 Toyota Prius. This happened 3 months ago, and I still haven't been able to come up with a rational explanation other than a glitch. It was a week before my brother's wedding, so I was staying with my parents to help them with preparations. My mom asked me to pick up her Sephora order from the mall, so I borrowed one of her cars, drove over there, and parked near the entrance closest to the Sephora. For context, this is an indoor mall that I'm very familiar with because I grew up in that area. While some of the stores have moved in and out, the general layout has stayed the same, and the Sephora has been in the same spot for as long as I can remember. You go through the side entrance, up the escalator, make a left, and there's a third store on your right. So I go inside, and the first thing I see is a brand new splatter room. I love splatter rooms, so I took a photo and texted it to my cousin group chat to tell them we should all do that together when they came into town for the wedding. Then I ran up to Sephora, grabbed my mom's order, and ran back out of the entrance I came in. I was inside for less than 10 minutes. When I got to where I had parked the car, it wasn't there. There was another car in that spot. I thought for sure I was just misremembering and it must be in the general area. So I started weaving up and down the parking spaces. After 5-ish minutes, I started pressing the lock button on my keys, but I couldn't hear anything from the car. I was just super confused, but still figured I was just misremembering. Maybe I parked it further away from the entrance and hadn't realized it? So I walked all the way down that row of parking spaces until I got to the actual road, carefully looking at every spot, all the while still pressing the lock button on the keys. Nothing. Then I did the same thing for the parking rows on either side of where I thought I'd parked. This time I was pushing the panic button too. Still nothing. I now knew the car must have been stolen, and I couldn't believe that this would happen right before my brother's wedding. I called my mom and explained the situation to her. The whole time she was on the phone, I was walking up and down different parking rows, looking for the car, hoping to God I just missed it. I knew I had to go inside and ask security if they had camera footage, and then report the car stolen. But also, I'm brown, and I've had bad cop experiences before. So I thought that I would walk all the way around the mall just once, and then report the car stolen. I was still rapidly pushing the lock and panic buttons, trying to breathe deeply and not freak out. When I got to the other side of the mall, a completely different entrance than the one I had come out of like 40 minutes earlier. That's when I heard the car. It was there, and it was parked, just not where I left it. I wanted so badly to believe that I had just forgot where I'd parked the car. I tried telling myself that I was just stressed out with the wedding and preparations, but I had the text that I'd sent to my cousins about the splatter room, with a photograph. 2 of them had replied to it. I know I went in that entrance. If I had parked it on the opposite side, I would have had to walk all the way around the mall to get to that entrance, which was ridiculous. It still creeps me out just thinking about it. Case file number 2088, written by Informed in the Chaos. My phone, Crumbs, and Chaos. I work from home and often sit on my couch to do menial tasks in the afternoons. I sit with a side table on my left and an organizer bin to my right. Since I do this so often, I have chargers laying just right, supplies on the side table, etc. I went to lift my phone a few minutes ago and stupidly grabbed it by the charger. It got snagged on the couch and ended up falling between the couch cushion and the armrest. Because of the way I heard it fall and how loud it was, I actually thought that the phone fell all the way through the couch and onto the floor. I got on my hands and knees and looked under the couch. When I didn't see it, I realized that it had not fallen all the way through and was actually stuck inside the couch itself. After moving the organizer bin, pillow, and couch cushion, I could see a small hole where the phone must have perfectly fallen, allowing it to go into the couch. I attempted to stick my arm into that hole, but then had no choice but to rip the lining of the couch in order to get my hand close enough to the phone to grab it. I got my phone and cringed at the amount of crumbs that were attached to it. I wiped it off, plugged it back into the charger, and placed it on my right side table, while mentally noting how close I had just come to damaging it, since it was delivered to me only 24 hours ago and is brand new. I then put my workspace and cushion back, I added a pillow to the side of the couch nearest the side table, so that nothing could fall back into the hole. I was thinking about how I was going to go about fixing the hole I had ripped in the lining, when I reached for my phone on the side table. It wasn't there. I stood up and looked around, comically patting my non-existent pockets. I looked under the couch, in my organizer bin, everywhere. Then I dinged my phone with my watch, and I could hear it. It was inside the couch. I removed the pillow and cushion and went to reach my hand in the hole in the lining I had just created, but I couldn't. The hole wasn't big enough. I had to rip it again. Here's how I know it was a glitch and cannot be explained away. 1. I am home alone. No one could have moved it, but even if I wasn't alone, I hadn't left the room. This all happened within a few moments. 2. I heard it fall through the couch the first time. It was loud and undeniable. I would have heard it if it had fallen again. There are no sounds in this room except for my dog softly snoring. 3. I plugged it back into its charger after I got it out of the couch the first time. Even if it had somehow fallen, the charger would have been moved, but it wasn't. It was laying just as I had laid it, only it wasn't attached to the phone like it should have been. 4. I had to rip the lining again. It was as though the universe reset by like 2 minutes, and my phone went back into the couch and the lining unripped. After I posted this original story last night, I decided to call my adult child to tell them about it. We were laughing in a, well, that's creepy as hell and unexplainable, but it's also super cool kind of way. When I start to say something that has shaken me to my core and has made me question the universe. Yesterday morning, like 12 hours before the glitch, I was taking another of my children to school and I felt compelled to tell them a story. When I was a teenager, the exact same age as this child, I was in a car crash. A friend had just gotten her license and had lost control on black ice. We slid to the driver's side, and then she overcorrected and we slid, nose first, into a ditch on the passenger side. I had, only seconds prior, took my seatbelt off to grab a piece of gum from her purse in the back seat. I still remember the way my body crashed to the roof of the car and then back to my seat over and over as the car flipped end over end 4 times. I then remember waking up to her screaming, "Oh my God, I killed my best friend!" I somehow walked away from being ejected out the back window. No one could understand how I was okay. I had minor cuts and bruises, and my ankle was pretty messed up. But I didn't even have to spend the night in a hospital after flying through a window and into a field. Medics and doctors kept saying, "You're the luckiest kid ever. Wear your seatbelt from now on." Blah blah blah. My family couldn't believe it and sobbed when they picked me up from the hospital. But it was more profound than that to me. Something changed in me that never felt the same again. It was as though I felt like I should have died, but didn't. So again, yesterday morning, hours before the glitch, I was telling one of my kids that I hated driving on December 17th every year, but that I couldn't get out of it last night due to commitments we had as a family. I told them I would be extra careful driving, as I always am, especially on the anniversary of the night I should have died. So, as I was telling my older son the glitch story, I began to say, well, be careful driving tonight. You know what today is, and I'm always skittish on the anniversary of the accident. When I looked at the clock, ladies and gentlemen, my phone somehow ended up on my couch for a second time, and the lining unripped at the exact same time. Within a few minutes, the accident was decades ago, before cell phones. I didn't even have an exact time of the crash, of the anniversary of the night I should have died. There's a small 10-ish window that I know the car crash was, decades ago. I know that the phone glitch was within that time frame last night. I'm honestly wondering if I jumped timelines back then, and then somehow the universe glitched last night because of it. I'm not scared or freaked out, like I would expect to feel. If anything, it's like I feel as though the universe somehow gave me an extra chance at life. I'm grateful. Well, we have the old adage of cats have 9 lives. Well, we have a lot more than 9 lives. Case file number 2089, written by Lady McIntyre. Scorpion sensed without pretense. I once saw a scorpion near my feet without the actual ability to see it. I was sitting at a roll-top desk, so the legs were drawers and there was a cutoff with just enough room for a chair. I was sitting with my feet on the floor in this area and the room was dark, the only light being cast on me from my laptop screen. Up to this point, I'd lived in this house for a good 5 to 7 years and had never found a scorpion there. At some point, I got a vivid mental image of a scorpion crawling towards my feet. I pulled my feet up instinctively, then thought, that was a weird thought, and went to investigate. Sure enough, there was a scorpion crawling right along the baseboard. I had no line of sight to this area while seated at the desk, and as I mentioned, the room was dark. I didn't actually spot the scorpion until I flipped the lights on. No idea how I knew, but I just did. My hearing generally isn't great, but I wonder if maybe somehow I heard it. Maybe I have an innate nature sounds catalog or something? Since as a child, I also correctly identified a rat problem, as opposed to the mice my parents thought they were dealing with, because I heard their tails slapping the walls as they turned around. Case file number 2090, written by Careless Hellscape. Dogs 3 escape. No thumb, no mistake. I was feeding my dogs before sitting down for work. I feed them each in a specific room of the house and never divert from it, so I know where I put my dog. To keep it simple, let's call them dogs 1 through 4, with dog in question being dog 3. I put dog 1, a 12-week-old puppy, in her playpen to eat, then put dog 2 in his kennel in my bedroom. I put dog 3 in my son's room and closed the door so that the cats don't harass her. Dog 4 was fed in the living room. Fast forward to about 15 minutes later, I hear dog 3 whining in my son's room. I know for a fact it was her whine. It's horribly high-pitched. So I got up to let her out. While getting up, I could clearly see dogs 1 and 4. I could hear dog 3 whining behind the door up to the point of turning the knob. But when I opened the door, she didn't come out. I looked in my son's room, but she wasn't there either. It's a small room and she's a 50-pound medium dog. There was nowhere to hide. So I turn around to look down the hall and I see dog 3 coming out of my bedroom across the house. There's just no way. Obligatory. No carbon monoxide detected in the house. I wasn't drunk, high, didn't sleep any worse than usual, didn't recently suffer a head injury. Everything is fine. I don't know how to rationalize how she got up there. Dog 2 is still in his kennel, so I didn't mix them up. Plus, they looked nothing alike. There were no windows open. She's a dog and has no thumbs, so she did not open the door herself, somehow sneak past my desk, across the living room, and into my room, where she then threw her voice back into my son's room. I didn't absent-mindedly get up and let her out. I have a disability that makes getting up and down very slow and painful. I would remember getting up. There are no big vents, giant holes in my house, or any other doors leading out of that room. I was standing in the doorway the whole time. She could not have gotten past me, because there's a dresser that keeps that door from fully opening. Only one person and a thing can fit through the space at a time. I'm baffled. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I absolutely could not have overlooked feeding dog 3. I feed my dogs in alphabetical order according to their names. Unless I also forgot dog 4, I could not have missed 3, if that makes sense. Case file number 2091, written by Nazrian. Blue shirt, gray car, double sighting. It was just another ordinary day. I was minding my business, washing my clothes like I always did. A little backstory. I have a cousin who lives across the street, but not directly opposite my house. Our homes are slightly staggered. This particular day, a neighbor was getting married. and since my cousin is good friends with him, he had been helping with the wedding arrangements. He wasn't home when all this went down. Now to the story. I was outside at the side of my house, taking clothes out of the dryer to hang them up. The sun was just right, and I was in my zone. That's when I heard it. A car with loud music pulled up in front of my cousin's house. Curious, I paused for a moment, but since I couldn't see his house directly from where I stood, I could only see the street, so I continued with my chore. After about 10 seconds, the car drove off. I leaned forward to catch a glimpse of it. To my surprise, it was my cousin in his gray car, windows rolled down, and I saw him clearly, wearing a blue shirt, party vibes and all. He was heading in the opposite direction, not the direction he came from, and I thought to myself, this man is definitely in party mode. Shrugging it off, I continued with my task. I grabbed 2 more pieces of clothing from the dryer, then moved to the front of my house to hang them on the balcony. But then, something strange happened. There he was, my cousin again, pulling into his driveway, coming from the opposite direction, not the direction he went. Same car, same blue shirt, only this time there was no loud music. I froze. What just happened? It had only been seconds since I saw him leave in the other direction, and now he comes from the opposite direction back? What is happening? Was it someone else the first time? But I clearly saw him. He has a specific look. It was definitely him. And if he took a detour, it is impossible to be home in less than 20 seconds. The detour usually takes 5 to 6 minutes, and I was outside the whole time with the street in view, so it can't be that he turned around without me noticing. Left me wondering, who was it the first time? Case file number 2092, written by No Problem, Cupcake. Whisper low, out the door, where did he go? I had just gone to bed, maybe 10 minutes, and I was reading a book. My husband walked into the bedroom and said something. I could see him standing next to the bed while I was reading. I still don't know what he said, and then he went to the bathroom. It sounded like him. Maybe the voice was a little lower? He was in the room for maybe 20 seconds. So when he walked out of the bedroom, I asked him what he said, but he didn't answer. I got out of bed because it felt weird. When I think about it, I still get this feeling like something was off. I got out of bed and walked to the bathroom. There was nobody. And I heard our front door open downstairs and my husband came in with our dogs. I heard them come in, he locked the doors, and he got up to the bedroom. He just got back because the dog had to pee. He was out for 5 to 10 minutes. So when he was in the bedroom talking to me, he was also outside? Still don't understand this. Case file number 2093, written by Snoo Tangerines 4981. The Magic of Matt. It's near Christmas of 1980. I'm a young teenager in the hospital, MD Anderson, who was going to be spending Christmas and New Year's in the hospital. So it was extra important to my dad that he got me whatever I wanted for Christmas. I wanted a memory game called Simon. It was one of the toys to have that Christmas. Impossible to get, but my dad was going to at least try. My dad is at Toys R Us staring at the empty shelf where the Simon game would be, if it were in stock. An employee with the name Matt on his name tag, attached to his Toys R Us vest, asked my dad if he could help him. My dad said he was looking for a Simon game. Matt simply said, "Follow me," and led my dad back to the warehouse area. And there was one Simon game by itself and, without saying anything, picked it up, handed it to my dad and walked away. My dad went to pay for it, and a confused cashier asked my dad, "Where did you get this? Because this has been sold out for days." My dad said Matt got it for him. The cashier, more confused now, said, "We don't have a Matt that works here." My dad described Matt and how he brought my dad to where it was. The cashier is now freaking out because no one with Matt's description works there. Both my dad and I had extra special Christmases that year. 5 Christmases later, I wind up working at the same Toys R Us. Case file number 2094, written by WholeWafer54. Speedy lights, then nothing in sight. I was driving my girlfriend at the time home from her dad's house to her mom's house. On a pretty desolate back road. Not much traffic on that road whatsoever, especially at night. And there are only 2 houses on this road which are spaced out pretty far. This road has a 35 mph speed limit and is pretty much 100% straight for about 1.5 miles. And then there is a 90-degree turn which is marked well. This particular night, I had been driving on the road for probably 3/4 of a mile. I checked my rearview mirror, which I normally do multiple times while driving, and I saw some headlights behind me, probably 1/4 of a mile back. Didn't think much of it, but the lights were getting brighter and closer at a pretty good rate. I was driving about 40 and kept my speed. Before I knew it, the headlights were right on my tailgate. It looked as if they were in the other lane to pass. The 90-degree turn was coming up quickly and not too far in front of us now, and I thought, holy crap, this jerk is about to pass me with the turn coming up. I saw the headlights in my driver's side mirror, and I started looking out of my window to see who was driving like that and flipped them off because it was a stupid move to pass there. But there was absolutely no vehicle that passed me. No more headlights. No sign of any sort of vehicle being there. My girlfriend had seen this happen as well. She told me to stop at the 90-degree turn and turn around, thinking that maybe the car crashed in the ditch or went off the road. I turned around and drove back that way, went really slow, and looked on both sides of the road. There was no sign of any vehicle, no tire tracks, no smoke from a crashed car, absolutely nothing. I had goosebumps for the rest of the night. Case file number 2095, written by Raoul Duke, Scarface, Ticks, and Beastly Rage. My ex used to be a nanny for this rich family when we lived in Northern California. When they would go out of town, we would house and dog sit for their Great Dane. The first weekend we ever stayed, we got there and we had lunch and decided to take a nap. My ex woke up saying she had this terrible nightmare of an old woman staring at her just inches from her face as she was sleeping. She said it felt super real and was like in the room we're in. Anyway, later that day, she had to nanny for another family while I stayed at the house with the dog. They had satellite TV, and I found Scarface to watch. I started up when my ex gets home. I pause the movie and turn everything off, the TV and the sound system. It's just before the chainsaw scene in Scarface. We go upstairs and go to the bed, and the Great Dane is sleeping, and then I doze off. A short while later, maybe 45 minutes, all of a sudden, the house lights up with the sound of gunfire, screaming, cursing, and chainsaws. I jump out of bed, and I'm so startled and disoriented, I can't figure out what's going on. Finally, it dawned on me. The TV turned on, the satellite turned on, and the sound system turned on. Then somehow it hit play on the DVR where I had Scarface paused. I go downstairs and turn everything off, comfort my ex and the dog, and we go back to bed. About 20 minutes later, as I'm falling asleep again, I hear a loud tick, 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 tick. There is a short pause, and then another loud tick, 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 tick. It happens again and again for about 5 minutes before I get up. As I get up, and I'm about to exit the main bedroom, the Great Dane loses his freaking mind. He starts growling and barking, and the hair on his neck is bristling up. I grab this old table leg that was in the bedroom from a broken dresser they have, while I'm still hearing the tick, 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 tick sound. At this point, I'm convinced there is an intruder in the house, and I'm thinking I'm going to have a throwdown with some robber. Thankfully, I am a big guy. I had a weapon and a scary as hell Great Dane on my side. I yell downstairs something to the effect of, "If you don't leave, I'm going to bash your freaking head in." I don't hear anyone run out, but the tick, 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 tick immediately stops. After about 5 minutes of listening into the dark and hearing nothing, I worked up the courage to go and search the rest of the house with a dog and weapon. I searched freaking everywhere and couldn't find anything, not even a source for the ticking. Finally, I'm standing in the kitchen island, confused as hell, thinking, where is the intruder? Or at least, what was making the ticking noise? Then I look at the freaking island stovetop and realized it was the sound of the pilot light on their gas cooktop on the island. It turned on and sure enough, tick, 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 tick. At that point, I'm freaking the frick out, but try to play it cool. When I go back to bed, I explain what happened to my ex and comforted her, because by this point she was really upset, almost in tears. She finally falls asleep like an hour later. By this point, it's like 3 a.m. But I can't sleep. I start to hear banging and thuds coming from up above us on the roof. The house was one of those McMansions, but since it was newer, it didn't have an attic, just a crawl space with insulation. I sat there and listened to the odd thump and bang in the roof for about 15 minutes, until it became completely quiet. I was finally able to fall asleep like an hour or so later. We never had any issues with the house again. Wow, I would not have stayed there myself. Basically a ghost trying to blow you up by gas. Crazy. Now time for the jokes of the day. Joke 1. My wife texted me this morning and said, "You're great." I replied, "No, you're great." She's been in a great mood ever since. I should correct her grammar more often. Joke number 2. Why should you never brush your teeth with your left hand? Well, because a toothbrush works much better. Just brushing out well, that's my right hand. Not super effective. I guess it works in a pinch, though. Joke number 3. I keep asking around what LGBTQ stands for. So far, I haven't gotten a straight answer. Joke number 4. 3 men are on a boat. They have 4 cigarettes, but nothing to light them with. So they throw a cigarette overboard, and the whole boat becomes a cigarette lighter. Joke number 5. I have a pen that writes underwater. It writes other words too. Impressive pen. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.